It was the kind of night you try to forget, but somehow it follows you for the rest of your life. I was only 16 when it happened, and I remember everything like it was yesterday, the way the house felt unusually quiet, the strange tension in the air, and my mother's eyes filled with something I had never seen before, fear. She pulled me aside, held my face in her trembling hands, and whispered words I'll never forget. You can never tell anyone what you saw tonight. Promise me. I promised. But that promise has eaten away at me for years. My name is Emily, and this is the true story of a night that changed everything I thought I knew about love, family, and trust. It's not just a story about infidelity, it's a story about silence, secrets, and the lengths people go to protect the people they love, or at least pretend to. Back then, I thought my parents had the perfect marriage. My father, a respected dentist in our small town, was always kind and present. My mother, quiet and elegant, held the house together with grace. We weren't rich, but we had stability, laughter, and what looked like love. At least, that's what I believed. That night started like any other. We had dinner around the table, Dad cracked his usual jokes, and Mom smiled like everything was fine. But I should have noticed the tightness in her smile, the way her hand trembled as she poured the wine. Something wasn't right. Later, I woke up to whispers, low, sharp, urgent. I crept out of my room, tiptoeing down the hallway. And that's when I saw something I wasn't supposed to. Something I couldn't unsee. I remember the sound of my own breath catching in my throat, the way my legs froze, and how my heart began pounding so loud I was sure someone would hear it. Mom found me standing there, eyes wide, my whole body shaking. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just looked broken. She rushed to me, pulled me into her arms, and said again and again, "You must never tell anyone what you saw, okay? Please. No one. Ever." I didn't understand why. I didn't understand what it meant. But I was terrified, and I nodded. And from that moment on, the secret became part of me. Now, years later, I can't keep it buried anymore. Because hiding the truth hasn't protected anyone, it's only caused more damage. And maybe, just maybe, it's time someone else knew what really happened that night. But before I tell you everything, before I reveal the truth behind the betrayal, the lies, and the silence, you need to understand one thing: this story isn't about blaming. It's about understanding. And once you hear what really went on behind those closed doors, you might realize some secrets come at a cost far greater than silence. So let me take you back to the beginning. To that one night. To the moment everything changed. And what I saw with my own eyes, what my mother begged me to forget forever. I guess to really understand what happened that night, you'd have to know what life was like before everything fell apart. On the surface, we looked like any other normal family. We had Sunday dinners, family movie nights, and birthday parties with homemade cakes. My dad was the kind of man people admired. He worked long hours at his clinic but always came home in time for dinner. People in our neighborhood used to say things like, "Your parents are such a strong couple," or "You're lucky to have a family like that." And I believed them. I believed in all of it, until that one night showed me something I was never supposed to see. My mom, on the other hand, was quiet but strong. She wasn't the kind of woman who spoke much at neighborhood events, but she had this calming presence. She always knew where everything was in the house, remembered every appointment, every detail. She was the glue that held us together. But now, when I look back, I realize there were cracks I just hadn't noticed. Small signs. The way she'd pause sometimes in the middle of folding laundry, lost in thought. Or how she'd wait for Dad's car to pull into the driveway and immediately fix her expression. Like she was putting on a mask. That night didn't just come out of nowhere. There had been little things. I'd wake up sometimes and hear low voices from the living room, arguments that would stop as soon as I got close. My mom's eyes would be red in the mornings, and she'd always say it was allergies. I was too young to question it then. But now I know, she was trying to hold everything in place, even while it was falling apart behind closed doors. And the truth is, it wasn't just a betrayal between a husband and a wife. It became something bigger. A betrayal that dragged me into it. A betrayal that forced my mom to choose between truth and silence, between protecting me and protecting herself. I didn't know who to trust anymore. After that night, nothing felt real. My father's smile, my mother's calm voice, even the walls of our house, they all started to feel fake. Like everything was just a show. What I saw that night still haunts me. I can't forget it, no matter how hard I try. But this story isn't just about what I saw. It's about everything that came after, the lies, the questions, and the fear of what would happen if the truth ever came out. After that night, something in the house changed. It wasn't loud or obvious, but it was there. The air felt heavier, the silences stretched longer, and everyone moved like they were walking on glass. My mother started avoiding eye contact, especially with my dad. She would speak when needed, but her warmth had vanished. My father either didn't notice or pretended not to. He went on with his routines, smiling, laughing, asking me about school, but his voice felt hollow. I started wondering how long he had been pretending. And then I started pretending too. At school, I became quieter. I stopped inviting friends over. I couldn't risk anyone seeing the cracks in my perfect family. But no matter how much I tried to bury what I saw, it followed me. Every time I passed by the living room, the place where it happened, I'd get a tight feeling in my chest. My mind kept going back to that moment, to the expression on my mother's face. Not just fear. There was something else there. Pain? Shame? I didn't know. But it scared me more than anything else. Days turned into weeks, and the weight of the secret started pushing everything else out. I couldn't focus. I stopped sleeping properly. My grades dropped, and my teachers began to notice. One day, Mr. Carter, my English teacher, pulled me aside after class. He asked if everything was okay at home. I almost told him. I really did. But then I remembered my mother's voice, "You must never tell anyone what you saw." So I shook my head and forced a smile. He didn't believe it, but he didn't press either. The hardest part was watching my mother fall apart in silence. She tried to stay strong, to keep up appearances. But late at night, when she thought I was asleep, I'd hear her crying in the kitchen. Quiet, painful sobs that broke something in me every time. I wanted to ask her why she didn't leave. Why she was still living under the same roof as the man who betrayed her. But I didn't. I was afraid of the answer. And then something strange happened. My father started acting different. He'd leave early in the mornings and come back late, sometimes without explanation. My mother never asked where he'd been. But I started noticing things, missing calls on the landline, texts he quickly deleted, and a perfume scent that didn't belong to my mother. Whatever I saw that night, it wasn't over. It was just the beginning. It all came to a head one cold Thursday evening. The kind of evening where the sky turns gray early, and everything feels still, like something is about to happen. I came home from school to find the house unusually quiet. No sound of pots clanging in the kitchen, no TV murmuring in the background, just silence. My mom sat at the dining table, staring at a piece of paper in her hand. She didn't even look up when I walked in. Her hands were shaking, her knuckles pale from gripping the page so tightly. I didn't ask. I just stood there, heart pounding, knowing something had shifted. That night, I heard them again. My parents arguing behind closed doors. But this time, it wasn't hushed. It was sharp, desperate. Words like truth, mistake, and "I can't do this anymore" echoed through the walls. I pressed my ear to my bedroom door, holding my breath. My mother's voice cracked as she said, "She saw you, that night. You don't even realize the damage you've done." My stomach dropped. For the first time, I knew she wasn't just protecting herself. She was trying to protect me, from the truth, from him, from everything that followed that night. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I noticed something different in her eyes. Like she had made a decision. She told me to come straight home after school, that she needed to talk to me. I could see the fear in her voice, even though she tried to sound calm. All day, I couldn't focus. My mind kept racing. Was she going to tell me everything? Was she finally going to break her silence? When I came home that evening, the living room was dark, and my mom wasn't there. Instead, my father was sitting in his chair, staring at the fireplace like he was waiting for something. Or someone. I froze. The tension in the room was thick. He looked up at me slowly and said, "We need to talk." About that night. My heart nearly stopped. After all these months, he was going to acknowledge it? But before either of us could say anything else, the front door opened, and my mom walked in, her face pale, her lips pressed together. She was holding something in her hand. A small black notebook. She looked at me, then at my father, and said, "No more secrets. It's time." And that's when everything started to unravel. My mother placed the black notebook on the coffee table like it carried a weight she couldn't hold any longer. My father didn't move. He just stared at it, his face unreadable. I looked between them, heart pounding, unsure of what was about to happen. My mother's voice was low but firm as she said, "You think you've hidden everything, but I know more than you realize. And she deserves to know too." She was talking about me. I sat down slowly, unsure if I even wanted to know what was inside that notebook. But deep down, I knew this was bigger than I had imagined. She opened it with shaking hands and turned a few pages toward me. I leaned in, scanning the messy handwriting, the dates, the names. My breath caught. It wasn't just about my father's betrayal. It was years of entries my mom had written whenever something felt wrong. Missed calls, odd behavior, late nights. There were notes about other women, yes, but also about a second phone she found, and a large sum of money withdrawn just days before that night. It didn't make sense. My mom looked at my father. "Where did the money go? Why did you lie to me about it?" He finally spoke, but his voice had lost all confidence. "It wasn't what you think." His eyes flicked to me, then back to her. "I was trying to fix things, before it all got worse." My mom laughed under her breath. Not because it was funny, but because it was the only thing left to do when your world keeps spinning out of control. "Fix what, exactly?" she asked, her voice cracking. And then he said something I didn't expect. "There's someone else involved." It wasn't just me. The room fell silent. My mom's face went blank, and I couldn't breathe. "Someone else? Who?" He rubbed his face, like he didn't want to say it out loud. "Your sister," he whispered. I felt like the ground beneath me cracked open. My sister, Anna, had moved away 3 years ago after a fight with my parents. We barely talked. But she was family. She was the one person I thought was untouched by all of this. "What does Anna have to do with this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He looked at my mom, almost pleading. "Tell her. You've known. You kept it from her too." My mother looked down. She didn't deny it. My head was spinning. All these years of silence, of pretending we were okay, and now this? Not just infidelity. Not just secrets. A tangled mess that went deeper than I could have ever imagined. My father stood up. "She's coming back. Tomorrow. She wants to explain herself." I didn't know whether to be angry or afraid. But I knew one thing for sure, this story wasn't over. It had just reached the part no one wanted to face. And now, everything was about to come undone. The next day felt unreal. I kept staring at the clock, counting the hours until Anna's arrival, not knowing what to expect. My mother stayed quiet most of the morning, just going through the motions like a ghost. My father barely said a word, pacing the living room like he was waiting for a storm to hit. And I couldn't stop thinking about everything that had come out. The betrayal, the notebook, the money, and now, Anna. What was she hiding? What could possibly connect her to the night that had haunted me for years? Around 4 p.m., her car pulled into the driveway. I watched from the window, my heart racing. She stepped out, looking older, more serious than I remembered. There was something in her eyes, guilt, maybe, or fear. As she walked in, the air grew heavy. We all sat in the living room, no one speaking. Finally, Anna broke the silence. I should have told you years ago. But I didn't have the courage. Her voice was low, but steady. She looked at me. You remember that night, right? You saw something. I nodded slowly. I saw Dad with someone. I thought it was just some woman. Anna glanced at my mother, then at Dad. It wasn't just that. She took a breath. It was me. I was the one meeting him that night. I'd come back home without telling anyone. I was pregnant. The room froze. My mind couldn't keep up. Pregnant? But I saw him kissing someone, she nodded. You saw him comforting me. Crying with me. I had just told him. But the woman who arrived right after you left the hallway, that wasn't me. I blinked. There was another woman? My mother spoke for the first time. That's what I didn't want you to know. After Anna left, your father, he got involved with someone else. It started small, but it grew into something serious. That night, you saw both things, Anna coming to him broken and scared, and moments later, the woman who had been part of his betrayal. It was too much. But then came the real twist. Anna opened her bag and pulled out an envelope. The money he withdrew, it was for me. He was helping me start over. The child wasn't his. But he wanted to do right by me. She paused. But here's the part no one knows, the woman Dad was seeing? She was married too. And her husband found out. I looked at my father. His face had gone pale. Anna nodded slowly. He's the one who's been threatening our family ever since. That's why Dad kept it quiet. That's why Mom kept it from you. Suddenly, everything made sense. The silence. The fear. The secrets. But as relief started to settle in, the doorbell rang. My dad's eyes widened. He stood frozen. My mom whispered, "It's him, isn't it?" And just like that, the truth was out, but the danger had only just arrived. The doorbell echoed through the house, louder than it should have been. No one moved at first. My dad stood frozen in the middle of the room, as if everything he had buried for years had suddenly risen to the surface. My mom quietly walked to the door. She paused, took a deep breath, then opened it. A tall man stood outside. He didn't look angry. Just tired. His eyes scanned the room behind her until they landed on my dad. He stepped inside, slowly, like he wasn't sure what he was going to do. Then, in a quiet voice, he said, "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just needed the truth." My father nodded, like he'd been waiting for this moment for years. The man, whose name was Mark, explained that his wife, the woman my dad had been involved with, had confessed everything during a messy divorce. Mark had spent months searching for answers. He never wanted revenge, he just needed closure. What hurt him most was that it wasn't just about infidelity, it was about betrayal from people who should have known better. People who chose lies over honesty. What happened next wasn't dramatic. There was no yelling or violence. Just long conversations. Heavy ones. My father apologized, honestly and openly. My mother, for the first time in years, let herself speak freely without protecting anyone else. And Anna, she cried as she talked about how all the secrets had pushed her away. how ashamed she felt for carrying so much pain alone. In the days that followed, something changed in our home. It wasn't that everything was magically fixed, but the silence that had once haunted us began to lift. My mom and dad decided to separate, not out of anger, but because they had grown into different people while carrying too many secrets. They both agreed it was time to start new chapters, separately, with more honesty and less pretending. Anna stayed with us for a while. We talked more in those weeks than we had in years. I learned things about her life, her struggles, and how scared she had been. And in turn, I told her how lost I had felt holding a secret I didn't understand. The black notebook was put away, not forgotten, but no longer needed as a shield. It had done its part. Looking back, I realized that night changed more than just my view of my family. It taught me how deeply silence can cut, and how truth, no matter how painful, can also heal. Infidelity doesn't just hurt two people. It touches everyone around them. But what matters most is what comes after, the choice to hide or the choice to be honest, even when it's hard. This was never just a story about betrayal. It was a story about family, fear, and forgiveness. A story about how one night uncovered years of hidden truths. And maybe, just maybe, about how sometimes, breaking the silence is the only way to move forward. 57.